Okay, I have that we are live here. Um, Let me just test the sound here. Testing, testing.
Yeah, it works.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Well, welcome, Quantum Leap here with David and Cory, and we are getting back from our long sabbatical. This is just our second week back, although we had a brief pause in broadcasting um, when Cory was out of town. But Cory, welcome back. We
Thank you.
are presenting today, and if you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling us who you are, if maybe this is somebody's first time joining the broadcast.
Yeah, so my name is Cory and I, and I am a business coach. My company is Take Wing Coaching, and I generally work with solo business owners or very small businesses to help them grow and get to whatever level of business they'd like to be at.
Right. And Cory and I have been doing this podcast for about 3 years now, and I really think we've been making some great headway on helping entrepreneurs. You know, he's the expert in really the nuts and bolts of business in a lot of ways, and then we have kind of a real synergy that we both focus a lot on, kind of mindset, and he's taught me a lot of things on purpose and um, really our vision, how important that is for our business. So we're going to go into that. I first wanted to see if there was any check-in you wanted to give, Cory, about what you've been up to in the off season or anything new with Lift, which we're going to talk about, your exciting platform for entrepreneurs and small business owners.
Yeah. What have we been doing? Oh, yeah, we've been busy moving and selling another house, and doing the kinds of things that we have to do at home. That's been keeping me pretty busy over the summer. But meanwhile, so for those who don't know, my business partner is also my wife. So Gail has been working a lot on the back end of improving our Lift platform and figuring out some tiers that we can bring people in at different levels, wherever they're at in their business. And we've been trying a new marketing platform, which we were very, very unhappy with. But ultimately, I think we got good feedback and learned some valuable lessons. And now we can pivot and do the kind of marketing I think will work much better for us this upcoming season. Yeah.
Okay, great. And today we are going to go a little bit into Lift and a recap, also talk about my new program, Rising Star, which is really a collaboration with Cory on a number of areas, and we're going to talk about that. I did want to first, I guess I'll introduce the Rising Star program first, and then just talk about the collaboration with you, Cory, and I'll allow you to kind of react to it or, say anything. And I really see this as kind of like two sides of the same coin, or kind of a yin and a yang about business success. That Rising Star is really mindset and kind of the whole kind of big picture of you and your success, and really Lift, your platform, and our collaboration is really the nuts and bolts of how to make your business work. And there is, I think, a bit of overlap with that purpose and core values, which you really vision, which you really drive home and Lift, but that's more about your kind of business related, whereas Rising Star is a bit more focused on the person. Like, we don't go into your vision of your business. It's more of your just your vision or your purpose for you as yourself, so
Right.
I really see it as, to be successful in business, people need both. This is really the combination of things that I pulled together from a lot of it I learned from you in one form or another, but other sources that you turned me on to about leadership, my business coach, Pradna Leitner, John Maxwell, Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins. So all the things that I found that work for me, I tried to distill it down into this streamlined program called Rising Star. And it's really, helping you achieve your quantum leap, whatever that may be. And I think Bob Proctor says most of the time, if you walk up and you ask somebody on the street, what is your goal? They won't know what you're talking about. I think most of us get lost is that we just try to kind of go with the flow, but to really be successful, we actually have to have some kind of thing that we're working toward. And Cory, you've done great presentations on this about vision. When you hit obstacles, that just means your vision has to get bigger. I was just going to see if you have any comments on the importance of that vision and purpose as we're talking.
Yeah. I don't know. There's, well, I do know. I guess it really starts with the why, and I know that you might be asking about that as well, but just to kind of differentiate, I think some of the things that you said was important is there's kind of two areas that we work in, and I do work a lot with mindset in somebody's business, but there's a lot of the things that a person runs as a business that goes on inside their head that creates kind of that self-talk, the self defeat, and the stuff that gets in our way and the patterns that get in our way. And the same thing happens in our lives. And then there's some crossover where business owners want to be leaders. They want to step out and be seen as more than just the business or what they're selling or and so on. And they want to show up as leaders in other ways. And I think that that's where the Rising Star coaching separates from the Take Wing coaching, which is really more about having your business take wing as a business owner and creating something. But then, so where we tend to work is we tend to work on the cross between, say, the person's purpose as a human being and the business purpose, which might be different in some ways. And it sounds like Rising Star is going to be more about the person's purpose and what they bring maybe to the greater business world, right? And I think that's really cool and not really hasn't been my area of focus. I do a little bit of that, but I think that launching them further into that will be great for the Rising Star program, which is why I like the name of it too. So kind of getting into that, I talk a lot about the why, which is, it's just this, it starts with that statement of like, this is why I do what I do. And it's examining the feelings around our business. Why is it that we help certain people, and who do we gravitate towards? And where did these feelings come up earlier in our lives? And so what are we bringing to the table as a business owner? And as we define that, then we find that people gravitate more to us because they start to see that we believe what they believe. And some people don't gravitate, and that's fine because maybe they have a different set of beliefs around things, and it's just not a good fit. And once we have that why, I help people kind of clarify a statement of belief. Like, this is what I believe about what my business and what I can do for others through this business. And this is really why I do it. And that belief statement really is a statement of purpose, right? It drives the purpose. And when we have that, I think things just get easier.
Yeah, no, that's been my experience. And I did want to just back up and kind of refresh people's memory about what you do with Lyft, because I know it's such a big platform, but could you just give us a little nutshell explanation about what Lyft is in terms of the service, that what's on there and kind of who it's for?
Yeah, I think Gail and I both believe, well, I had a lot of, I was really good at creating obstacles for myself, from a young age, and just so much potential, so many things that I knew I could do. And then I would just have this kind of self-destructive pattern that, I'd rise up a little bit and then just kind of ruin everything. And it got really bad. I mean, sometimes nearly fatal at times. And until my, mid 20s, early 30s, it was like that. And even for a while, until I really started to examine, where these patterns were holding me back. And I know Gail has her own set and her own why. It's a good story that, I'm sure she's happy to share, and why she helps people. But I think we've both come together where we believe in other people and understand that they're holding themselves back in some way, and they deserve to have what they want to achieve. What we hear from them saying, this is what I want, but this is what they're doing. We want to align what they're doing with what they really want, because we believe in them. And that is one of our core values is, that belief in people, whatever their unique situation is. And so Lyft was designed with this idea that we can help people who may not be able to afford expensive traditional coaching. That could be upwards of $500, $1,000 an hour to get that from us even. And instead, so we created this online membership where we give group coaching, workshops, self-guided courses, a forum for people to talk, accountability, all kinds of sort of a la carte options at a very low price point. And in fact, we're just launching what we call Runway, which will be a $15 price point. They won't get the live coaching, they won't get the live workshops, but they can still use the forums, they can do all the self-guided courses. And we've been meeting a lot of business owners lately who just really have no resources at all. And there are certainly places they could go for that, like SCORE and other things, but Lyft, I think, really encourages that growth. And then they can, step up their game as they go along. So our goal is to just sometimes help people who have no clients actually get some clients. And that's what Lyft is all about, is the early part of the business or where they're stuck and getting to the next level.
Yeah, perfect. I love that runway concept. And I think in this challenging economy, a lot of people are just starting with nothing, or maybe they're, in debt. I saw
Yeah.
average credit card debt is about 8,500 these days. And, I really think there's so much value there in Lyft, in that, I love how you created this online community, so you can kind of, if you are on the full version of Lyft, you can actually pop in there and get your kind of in Gail's coaching in your online office hours. So you're getting really this, $200 an hour, or whatever, plus value of coaching is part of your Lyft membership, which is an affordable $100 a month, or whatever it is with
Yeah.
the special.
The second
Plus, you're
tier
also
is the
learning from
90 a
your
month.
peers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just going to share my screen real quick to just show you the kind of nuts and bolts of this rising star here, in terms of, you'll see how it's very different from Lyft. And I'd be interested to get your reaction. Kind of the kind of crux of what it is a 6-month professional coaching and success program designed to generate a quantum leap in results. And that's why I say, maybe you're not a business owner, maybe you work in the nonprofit sector, maybe you're an advocate for environmental justice, or racial justice, whatever it may be. It's really your purpose, whatever your quantum leap is. Maybe it's to be a world-class musician or piano player. So it's really, the program content is 11 modules and accompanying worksheets. So, I'll show you what the modules are. And it's really based around the coaching sessions, to take you through with 1 or 2 sessions a month of 30-minute sessions over 6 months, but also access to weekly office hours, kind of like yours. I love that, where you can pop in and just get that kind of inspiration that you need, or be able to overcome those barriers on a weekly basis. I think something that's so hard in the beginning of a business is you hit barrier after barrier, and just having somebody there to listen and talk to you is huge. I don't know if you, what you found, say somebody's starting a new business, haven't you had a good experience with your office hours?
Yeah, no, I think office hours are really helpful. I mean, it works well in a membership environment, and I know some coaches do that. It just depends on the level of the community, and some people who hire private coaches don't really go for the office hours. It's not how they want it. They want you exclusively for the time that they pay for. And Gail and I do have clients like that as well, and they don't participate in Lyft, and I don't know that they even would. When you talk about it, it's like that's not really of interest. It's something that you and I have talked about, but it's always worth trying out, see if that's a good fit for them, and if they need more time, what are some other ways that you can give them time without giving them direct hours. That's more a statement of how you run your business versus what is the Rising Star program. Well, like I said, I think that there's a lot in the way of people achieving the success they want in ways other than running the business, and I think this will be really good for that.
Yeah. No, Point well taken. And I'm actually a professor, as if you know, for a while. And so the office hours are kind of a
Yeah.
something I'm used to, and I think most people really um, ideally need that private coaching. That's like the most efficient and effective, but that's not always affordable, so I do have coaching built into this program, and if they need additional coaching, I can do it, or I actually plan to refer you for a number of key things on coaching, more work on that purpose and connection. um, so really, you recognize a lot of these things: clarity on purpose, staying disciplined, work on core values. I think a big thing that I'm looking at that I think is a key driver is your daily practice, really
Mm,
setting up a unique daily practice for you. I don't know if you've read that book, The 7 Habits of Successful People, or
right.
something to that effect, but it's really about what's going to propel your success on a daily basis. Because we don't kind of, I've been a I don't know where I heard it, but I've been an overnight success, or but it took me 20 years to get there. You hear
Right.
that all the time from people who are successful. Learn how to break down barriers, particularly something called the terror barrier, which I just don't often see people get through that barrier on their own without a coach. For example, a lot of times that's just taking that first step to go out and start that business. I think, something like Lyft or this program that gives you that space to take those initial steps and keep that momentum. Another big specialty of mine that I really have studied from some of the best figures is this concept of self-image that produces the results that you want in life. I think, to be a world-class business owner or great at something, you have to have that image that aligns with that. That doesn't come overnight, but that daily practice will get you there. And for example, you as a business coach, the kind of the confidence that you speak with things and the number of things that you've seen, all that experience builds up to develop this image. Is, I'm a great business coach, for example, or I'm great at this. So here are the kind of 11 modules in the detail. First, just introducing. I find a lot of people don't even recognize they're not even going for a quantum leap. They're just going for, I just want to survive or whatever. That's actually not the mindset you want to have. I know it's tempting in this economy, but you actually want to set a high bar for your business, which you also talk about, because that's what kind of drives you. So here's all the things. I won't go into anything. I don't know if there's anything that catches you here that you want to comment on. Um, this concept of definite plan, which I also think that you and Gail do really well. And again, in my program, it's not kind of a business plan like you do in Lyft. I'll, send people over to the Lyft content or whatever for a business plan. This is more of kind of like a plan for a success plan, so to speak.
Mhm.
So,
Sure.
so yeah, I'll stop the share on that and look. If you have any reaction, otherwise, I did want to get to a couple more
Yeah, it
things
looks
as
great.
we have time. Yeah.
I look forward to
Um,
seeing who's going to be your clients.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the thing that you got to figure out. That's
Yeah. Initially, I thought it is really geared towards the younger generation, 20s and 30s. But the more I find that people often don't get stuck enough to want to try coaching until maybe their late 30s or their 40s and 50s. So, well, the jury's still out on that, and we will keep in close touch about that. I did want to get to this concept of core values. I feel like that's such a huge thing for our podcasts and our businesses. If you don't mind me asking you about why core values are so important for solopreneurs and small businesses, and what is there in Lyft to the work that you do on core values and how that's relevant to business?
Yeah. So starting with the why, and then as we develop that statement of purpose, those are somewhat kind of, they're a lot of work. It's a lot of peeling back the onions and the layers and so on. But as we do that, we can start to look at, okay, what do we value in this business? And that's what starts to create this. There's a couple of things that it does, right? So the why and the purpose gives us a connection to our business, and the core values give us a clarity on who it is that we're connecting to. And I feel like once we have that purpose and the vision, we haven't talked a whole lot about vision, but that's a big part of it. And then the core values, things just flow, right? Decisions come from the core values and they feel more right. And they're in alignment with the vision, right? So we're, if we're doing, if the decision is right for our values and it also suits the vision, it's just easier, right? It's like, okay, this is a good decision. Things happen just more organically. People come to you more organically. Like I said, it's that flow. Opportunities open up. It's amazing what happens when you're so clear about who you are, what you're doing, what your business is going to accomplish, that those opportunities just start to like open up. They may have already been there, they may have always been there, they may have always been opening up, but you don't necessarily see them because you're just stuck in this you're just kind of stuck in your own head and stuck in your own business and not really paying attention. And then things start to flow when you have those pieces in place. And it's
Yeah.
not really that anything is changing in the world. It's more of we become more of who we want to be.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're so right about that. That was probably made the biggest difference in my business more than anything. And looking back, which almost brings kind of an overnight type of clarity, that purpose, vision, and core values. When the module that you took us through in Flight Plan, where you draft that vision, you write out your purpose, you write out your core values. Because if you don't have that, you can't attract your ideal client, or if you do, you're kind of getting lucky somewhat. You're doing it almost by accident, but it's not like a systematic way for attracting your ideal client. So
Right.
that those modules are available right now in Flight Plan,
Hmm.
and I assume probably in Runways as well. If somebody wanted to try out Lyft right now, I'll have to, they can go to your website and log on and do a trial or sign up.
It's takewingcoaching.com/lift, and you apply. And now we have the $15, or we do offer a return a guarantee. So if somebody isn't finding that it's valuable for them, we'll give them their money back, especially on their runway. $15 is a small amount to invest. And they can get started with the workbooks. They can watch our videos. And what's great, I think what really makes this kind of special is even at that price point, they can write down their core values and they can put them in the forum and they can say, I'd like your feedback on that. And we'll give our feedback, and we encourage generous feedback from other members, or you can say, I would just like to hear from the coaches. That's fine too. But that's not something you can get pretty much anywhere else. And we're experts in that. And then, of course, we do encourage people to step up and do the group coaching and other things, because they'll get so much more value for very little extra. And we do actually have another ramp up too that we're working on called Soar, which will include some personal coaching and some other features. Yeah.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it and talk more about it on the show as we go forward. I know Corey and I we're gonna wrap up here and get to our next guest, Jake Ralston. Just a couple things I wanted to say: that we will be presenting about twice a month. We'll see, maybe a little bit more or less depending on the month. And we will be going into all the workshops that you have going, Corey, and we're going to do maybe a joint workshop too on purpose or core values, so people can kind of have a low risk thing to get introduced to these concepts. And we'll be talking about it on
Sure.
the air. And other than that, I was going to wrap up. If you have any closing other comments, feel free to make them, or reaction of what you'd like to see this year. I do want to bring some more exciting guests on that we haven't had. I know we're going to have Don Lyons on in about a few weeks here. I'm really looking forward to that. But
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to see who we bring on and furthering these conversations.
okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Corey. Good to have
Thank
you
you, David.
back. And we'll take a brief break. And we're going to have coming right up with Jake Ralston on business NLP training. He's a hypnotherapist, some very unique stuff. See you soon.